Every 4 years, half the planet stops. The World Cup final pulls in more than 1 billion live viewers. No other event on Earth comes close. And one organization owns all of it. It's called FIFA. It sits on billions of dollars, controls the biggest sport humanity has ever played, and answers to almost nobody. But here's the strange part. In 1904, FIFA was just 7 men in the back room of a building in Paris, scribbling rules onto paper. And the one country that actually invented football, England, looked at them and said, "No thanks." For the next 122 years, FIFA turned a schoolyard game into a global empire. It survived world wars, dictators, and the single biggest corruption bust in the history of sport. FIFA's greatest weapon was never football. It was survival. And this is just the beginning. 1904, the 7 men who started it all. By the early 1900s, football was spreading across Europe like wildfire. Sailors, students, and factory workers carried the game to every port they touched. But there was a problem. Every country played by slightly different rules, and nobody agreed on anything. So on the 21st of May 1904, representatives from 7 countries gathered in the back of a building in Paris. France, Belgium, Denmark, the Netherlands, Spain, Sweden, and Switzerland. They founded the Fédération Internationale de Football Association, FIFA. Now here's the funny part. They wanted England to lead them, because England had invented modern football decades earlier. So they sent an invitation across the channel. "Gentlemen, we're forming a global football federation. Will you join us?" A global what? A federation. To organize international matches. We invented this sport. Why would we take orders from Belgium? So that's a no? That's a firm British no. England refused to join a club they were literally born to run. The founders shrugged and elected a Frenchman named Robert Guerin as their first president. FIFA now existed on paper. It had almost no money, no tournament, and no England. But it had an idea nobody else had thought was possible. One day, every nation on Earth would play under the same flag. And that dream was about to get its first real test. 1930, the first World Cup nobody wanted to attend for 26 years, FIFA slowly grew, adding member after member. England eventually swallowed its pride and joined, then quit, then joined again, because of course they did. By 1930, FIFA President Jules Rimet decided it was finally time. The world needed a single tournament to crown the best nation on Earth. The first ever World Cup. There was just one small issue. He picked Uruguay to host it. Look at this map. See that tiny country tucked on the bottom edge of South America? For a European team, getting there meant a 2-week boat journey across the entire Atlantic Ocean. Most of Europe took one look at that and stayed home. We'd love to come, but Uruguay is very far. It's the World Cup. The first one ever. Yes, but have you seen how much boat that is? Only 4 European teams made the trip. Uruguay, meanwhile, spent a fortune building a brand new stadium just for the occasion. And in front of a roaring home crowd, they won the whole thing, beating neighboring Argentina in the final. The World Cup was born. It was small, it was awkward, and half the planet ignored it. But an idea had taken root, and it would soon become the most heartbreaking sport on Earth. 1950, the day Brazil stopped breathing after a pause for a little event called the Second World War, the World Cup came back bigger than ever. And in 1950, it landed in Brazil, the country that loved football more than any nation alive. Brazil built the Maracanã, the largest stadium on the planet, holding almost 200,000 people. They cruised through the tournament, smashing everyone in their path. In the final match, they only needed a draw against tiny Uruguay to win it all. Nearly 200,000 Brazilians packed the stands, ready to celebrate. Newspapers had already printed Brazil, world champions. and then Uruguay scored. Then they scored again. Brazil lost 2-1 in their own stadium. We printed the victory papers already. Unprint them. You can't unprint a newspaper. Then we don't speak of this. Ever. The silence in that stadium was so total that people said you could hear the Uruguayan players breathing. Brazilians call it the Maracanã. To this day it is remembered as a national tragedy, the day an entire country's heart broke at once. Football wasn't just a game anymore. It was identity, it was pain, it was everything. And very soon, it was about to become something else entirely. Money. 1966. Television turns football into gold for its first 50 years. Football was mostly about pride. Then came television. By the 1960s, TV sets were appearing in living rooms across the world, and suddenly a single match could be watched by tens of millions of people at once. When England finally hosted and won the World Cup in 1966, hundreds of millions tuned in worldwide. And a few clever people in suits realized something enormous. Every one of those eyeballs could be sold. To advertisers, to sponsors, to broadcasters desperate for an audience. Football wasn't just a sport anymore. It was the biggest captive audience in human history. FIFA was sitting on a gold mine and barely knew it. But one man was watching very, very closely. And he was about to take over the whole thing. 1974, Havlang and the Great Takeover. For most of its life, FIFA had been run quietly by polite European gentlemen who treated it like a hobby. Then in 1974, a Brazilian businessman named Ju Havlang decided he wanted the crown. And he did something no one had ever tried. He campaigned. He flew around the world, especially to the smaller nations of Africa and Asia, the ones the Europeans had always ignored, and he made them promises. Vote for me, and I'll give your countries more spots in the World Cup. But we never qualify. Exactly. I'll expand the tournament. More teams, more money, more football for everyone. And what do you want in return? Just your vote, my friend. Just your vote. It worked perfectly. Havlang won, becoming the first non-European to run FIFA. And he transformed it overnight. He signed massive sponsorship deals with giant companies like Coca-Cola and Adidas, deals worth fortunes. He expanded the World Cup so more countries could join. Money flooded into FIFA like never before. Havlang had taken a sleepy sports club and turned it into a global business empire. But all that money, all that power, was about to attract some very dangerous friends. 1978. The World Cup under a dictatorship. By 1978, the World Cup had become so valuable that hosting it was a matter of national prestige. That year, it was held in Argentina. There was just one problem. Argentina was ruled by a brutal military dictatorship that had seized power 2 years earlier. Thousands of people who spoke against the government were disappearing, never to be seen again. And the generals knew exactly how useful a World Cup could be. A shiny global spectacle to distract the world from what was happening in the shadows. Sir, the world is asking questions about the missing people. Then give them something else to look at. Like what? Like a World Cup trophy. Nobody investigates a champion. Argentina won the tournament on home soil, amid a wave of national euphoria and some very suspicious results. It was one of the first times the world saw clearly that FIFA's crown jewel could be used as a political weapon, a tool to clean the image of governments doing terrible things. FIFA had power now. Real power. And where there is power and money with almost no oversight, something rotten always begins to grow. 1986. Maradona and the hand of God. But let's not forget why any of this mattered in the first place. The football itself. In 1986, at the World Cup in Mexico, the world witnessed the most famous few minutes in the sport's history. Argentina faced England in the quarterfinal, two nations that had literally been at war just 4 years earlier. and a short, stocky genius named Diego Maradona took over the game. First, he punched the ball into the net with his hand, right in front of the referee, who somehow didn't see it. When asked about it later, Maradona said it was scored by the hand of God. Diego, did you handle the ball? It was the hand of God. It looks like your hand. God works through many hands. Mostly mine. Then, minutes later, in the same match, he did the opposite. He picked up the ball in his own half and dribbled past the entire England team to score what is still called the greatest goal ever scored. In one game, Maradona showed both sides of football. The cheating and the magic, tangled together forever. He dragged Argentina to the trophy almost single-handedly. Moments like these made billions of people fall in love. And that love was worth more money than anyone had ever imagined. 1998. Blatter takes the throne after 24 years of ruling FIFA. Joe Havlang finally stepped down in 1998. And his chosen successor was a smooth, smiling Swiss administrator named Sepp Blatter. Blatter had spent years working his way up inside FIFA, learning exactly where every lever of power was hidden. When it came time to elect the new president, there were whispers immediately. Rumors that delegates had been handed envelopes of cash to vote the right way. Nothing was ever proven at the time. Blatter won, and he took the throne of the most powerful body in sports. Congratulations on the presidency, sir. Thank you. It was a clean and fair election. Some people are asking about envelopes of cash. I know nothing about any envelopes. There are photos of envelopes. Those are gift envelopes. For birthdays. Everyone has a birthday. Blatter would go on to rule FIFA for 17 years. Under him, the organization made more money than ever, expanding into every corner of the globe. But behind the smiles and the trophies, a machine was quietly running. A machine built on votes, favors, and cash. And it was getting bigger every single year. 2002, the machine goes global. By the 2000s, FIFA was an absolute money monster. In 2002, the World Cup was held in Asia for the very first time, co-hosted by South Korea and Japan. It was a spectacular success, opening up gigantic new markets full of hungry new fans. Television deals were now worth billions. Sponsorship deals were worth billions more. FIFA had transformed from that little Paris meeting room into one of the wealthiest sporting organizations on the planet. And here was the strangest part of all. FIFA was technically a non-profit. On paper, it was just a humble association promoting the beautiful game. In reality, it was sitting on a mountain of cash so large that the temptation surrounding it had become almost impossible to resist. The deciding votes for who got to host these golden tournaments were controlled by a small handful of powerful men. And soon, someone was going to pay to control them. 2010, the vote that sold 2 World Cups. December 2, 2010. This is the day everything cracked open. On a single afternoon, FIFA's committee voted on who would host not one but 2 future World Cups at the same time. The 2018 tournament and the 2022 tournament. When the envelopes were opened, the world froze. 2018 would go to Russia. And 2022 would go to Qatar. A tiny desert nation with almost no football history, summer temperatures hot enough to be dangerous, and barely any stadiums. It made no sporting sense whatsoever. And the 2022 World Cup goes to Qatar. Qatar? It's 50 degrees in the summer there. We'll figure that out later. They have no stadiums. They'll build some. They have, let's say, motivation. The football world erupted in disbelief. How on earth did Qatar win? Accusations of bribery flew instantly, whispers of secret payments and backroom deals worth millions. FIFA insisted everything was above board. But this decision was the crack that would eventually bring the entire house down. Because someone very powerful had finally started watching. And they weren't football fans. They were the FBI. 2015. The Dawn raid the morning of May 27, 2015. A luxury 5-star hotel in Zurich, Switzerland, where FIFA's most powerful men were gathered for their annual meeting. As the sun rose, plainclothes Swiss police walked quietly through the lobby. They went up to the rooms of top FIFA officials and arrested them one by one, hiding the handcuffed men behind bedsheets as they led them out. The United States Department of Justice had been investigating FIFA for years, and they had uncovered an ocean of corruption. Bribery, kickbacks, and secret payments stretching back decades, adding up to more than $150 million. Sir, the police are in the lobby. Tell them I'm busy. They have a list of names. Yours is on it. Which list? The good list? The handcuffs list, sir. Sepp Blatter himself was not arrested that day, and unbelievably, he got himself re-elected as FIFA president just 2 days later. But the pressure was crushing. Sponsors panicked. Governments demanded answers. And within a week, Blatter announced he was stepping down. The most powerful man in football, gone. The empire that had ruled for over a century had finally been caught. But the 2 World Cups that started it all were still coming. 2022, the most expensive World Cup ever despite everything, Qatar's World Cup went ahead in 2022. And it became the most expensive sporting event in human history. Qatar reportedly spent over $200 billion, building entire stadiums, hotels, roads, and even a brand new city from the sand up. But it came at a terrible human cost. Thousands of migrant workers labored in brutal heat to build it all, and many of them died, sparking outrage across the world. For the first time ever, a World Cup was moved to the winter, because summer in Qatar was simply too hot to play in. And yet, on the pitch, it delivered one of the greatest finals ever seen, as Lionel Messi finally lifted the trophy he had chased his whole life. The stadiums are beautiful, sir. They cost more than some entire countries. And the criticism? The final was very exciting. People forget quickly. Qatar 2022 was FIFA in a single snapshot. Breathtaking football and staggering wealth, sitting right on top of very serious questions that never quite went away. The scandal, the money, the magic, all tangled together. Just like always. Present, 2026 and the 48-team future today, FIFA is led by a new president named Gianni Infantino, who took over in the wreckage of 2016 promising to clean everything up. And FIFA is bigger than it has ever been. Look at this map. In 2026, for the first time in history, a single World Cup will be shared across 3 whole countries at once. The United States, Canada, and Mexico. It will also be the largest tournament ever held, expanding from 32 teams all the way up to 48. More matches, more nations, and more money than any tournament before it. From 7 men in a Paris back room to a 3-nation, billion-dollar, planet-sized spectacle. FIFA has survived world wars, dictators, and an FBI raid that should have destroyed it completely. And somehow, it's still standing, richer and more powerful than ever. Outro, and that is FIFA. A tiny idea that England laughed at, which grew into the most powerful organization in all of sport. But here's what most people miss. Almost every scandal, every strange decision, traces back to one thing. The mountain of money that football created. Follow the money, and the whole story finally makes sense. If you want to see how another global empire rose and rotted from the inside, click right here. The story gets insane. And I'll catch you next time.